I did. I'm also a creative writing graduate of, used to be CMSU, but now you guys call it UCM, changing everything. But the deal there was, when I went there, I understand they separate the classes now. You have either poetry or writing. When I went there, it was all creative writing. You either wrote poetry or you didn't get a grade. But I don't write poetry. Anyway, this is a little something that I wrote a couple of 3 weeks ago, and I've been trying to get it into shape, and I finally got it done today. It's only 4 pages, and I don't know if it's the start of something or if this is all there is, but here goes. It's called Undercover Santa. No comments about the guy with the beard. An old pickup, originally it had been bright red, was now mostly oxidized auburn and rust, pulled into one of the senior citizens only parking spots near the mall entrance. The driver, like his mode of transportation, had seen better days. Medium to short in height, he appeared to have been quite muscular at one time, but though his shoulders were still broad and his arms still thick and solid, he was pudgy around the middle, verging on fat. He wore combat boots, the black leather scuffed almost to a suede, blue jeans and a denim shirt faded to nearly white, and a straw hat with a broad brim just starting to unweave itself. Long white hair and a full beard to match completed the image of a retired farmer, or perhaps a flower child gone to pot, pun most definitely intended. But if one were to get close enough to peek under the ragged straw brim at the blue-gray eyes behind cheap bifocals, one would find them clear, bright, focused, and cold as Thanksgiving morning in International Falls, Minnesota. No rural grandpa this, nor one of the surviving disciples of the late Dr. Leary. This was imminent danger, disguised as an icon of peace, love, and plain old down-home goodness. Santa Claus possessed by a killer demon. Ignoring the smiles greeting him as he passed and turning away from the awestruck faces of small children, he made his way to the food court and purchased a small black coffee. Hardboard cup in hand, he located a corner table that allowed him a clear view of the area while keeping his back to a solid wall. He sat, uncapped the coffee, and waited. He didn't have to wait long. About 99% of the mall customers, as was the fashion, were dressed casually. But making his way through the throng was a man in a dark three-piece suit, complete with narrow lapels, a narrow black tie, and sunglasses. He looked so out of place, so stereotypically MIB, that the man seated at the table had to allow himself a tiny smile. So much for being inconspicuous. The new arrival brought a copy of something brown and frothy and joined him at the table, taking the other seat protected by a solid wall. He sipped the concoction, getting foam on his upper lip, which he daintily dabbed at with a paper napkin. If I'd known you were going to show up in uniform, I'd have worn a red suit with a fur-trimmed hat. The black suit grunted, his version of an attempt at humor acknowledgement. He couldn't really call it a laugh. He took one more sip of his beverage, latte perhaps, set it on the table and leaned back against the wall. A little early for that gig, isn't it? Faded denim man gave crisp black suit man a withering glance that would have petrified a mere mortal, it only made the latter a bit uneasy. They'd worked together more or less successfully before. Hello, Labor Day was over a month ago, soon be Halloween. Nobody waits till after Thanksgiving anymore. Pity, I miss the good old days. You don't look old enough to remember the good old days, which, by the way, weren't all that good. I've had work done, but I don't like to talk about it. The hairy old man imitated his companion's grunt of humor appreciation. The two sipped and scanned the crowd for anomalous activity or characters. After a few minutes, Black Suit pulled what appeared to be a cell phone from his pocket. He placed it on the table and tapped the screen. A loud expletive, possibly naming a sacred solid bodily excretion, drew everyone's attention to a gentleman on the upper level of the mall. He was simultaneously jerking the earbuds of his iPod from his ears and doing a complicated head-grubbing, foot-stomping little dance. Black Suit: well, it's safe to talk business now. Faded denim: what the hell is that thing and where can I get me one? Black suit. Among other things, it's a device that hones in on surveillance doohickeys and overloads them. Damned if I know how, though. If you really want one, all you have to do is come in out of the cold and go to work for us on a permanent basis. Jerry Martin, not his real name, also known as Faded Denim, studied Dean Lewis, not his real name either, also known as Black Suit. Uniform aside, he was a perfect medium with no outstanding characteristics, designed by nature with a little cosmetic assistance to blend into any crowd and disappear. Jerry shook his head, a slight smile finding its way to his lips. No thanks, you guys are too regimented. I value my individuality too much. Besides, you never have any fun. Dean smiled wistfully, as if a particularly bittersweet memory had just traversed his normally hyper-rational, unemotional mind. We have our fun, Jerry. We just don't advertise it. We hold it in and treasure it for what it is, an antidote for all the crap we have to deal with on a daily basis. Jerry's attention, which was almost always turned outward, searching his environment for nuances, indications of brewing trouble or dangerous situations, turned inward. The ice in his eyes thawed just a bit. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Probably won't go back for a while, if ever. He sipped his coffee and went back to studying the crowd. So, what's the gig and why me? Dean tasted his still unidentified beverage. He frowned slightly and pushed it away. They're just not very good at it here. For the price they charge, you'd think they'd do a better job. Well, they do a pretty good job on Columbia and High Test. You should try it sometime. Get back to basics. Now, the gig. Dean cleared his throat, gave Jerry a full-on, full-faced stare, totally devoid of emotion. The end of the world is nigh. It was an archaic code calling for a response, acknowledging receipt and understanding. Jerry had to sort through what seemed like a millennium or two of accumulated muck to come up with the proper one. And naught can be done to save us. The two, so outwardly different, sat quite... The two, so outwardly different... Who writes this stuff? The two, so outwardly different, sat quietly watching. In sadness, the crowd of shoppers, all of them completely oblivious to their fate. Jerry broke the silence. Couldn't we just... Dean cut him off, voice husky with emotion. No, we observed, nothing more. You know that. After several minutes in unison, they each dabbed at their eyes with paper napkins and stood. With utmost courtesy and formality, they faced each other, shook hands, bowing slightly from the waist, then turned and departed as they had arrived, taking separate routes. Soon, the tiny egg-shaped Watcher Scout ships would rise from the planet's surface by the hundreds to rendezvous with the cloaked mothership in polar orbit. The evacuation had begun. Thanks.